A single failed harvest could erase an entire village. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly. No battles, no burning cities, no final moment anyone would remember. Just absence. In the Middle Ages, survival depended on one thing above all else: the harvest, not money, not skill, not even faith alone. Food. Most medieval people lived 1 year at a time. They did not plan decades ahead. They planned until the next harvest. If the crops grew, life continued. If they failed, life began to disappear. A bad harvest did not mean hunger immediately. It began with worry. Granaries were checked again and again. Bread was stretched thinner. Meals became smaller. People noticed the fields first: short stalks, thin heads of grain, too much rain, too little sun. Farmers understood the danger before anyone else. They had seen it before. The harvest was not only food, it was seed for the next year. It was rent, it was tax, it was survival. When the harvest failed, impossible choices appeared: eat now and risk next year, or save seed and starve today. Most villages tried to balance both. Most failed. Winter followed. Cold did not kill first, hunger did. People burned more fuel to survive the nights, but fuel did not fill stomachs. Bread became coarse, mixed with bark, with weeds, with anything that could be ground. Animals were slaughtered early, not because they were ready, but because they could no longer be fed. Milk disappeared, then meat, then fat. Children felt hunger first. Their bodies weakened faster. They cried less as weeks passed. Not because they were calm, but because they were exhausted. Illness followed hunger. Bodies without food cannot fight disease. Minor infections became fatal. Old wounds reopened. Coughs turned deadly. People did not understand why sickness spread. They only noticed that hunger always came before it. Spring should have brought hope. Instead, it brought fear. There was no grain left to plant properly. Fields were sown thinly, poorly. People borrowed seed from neighbors who had none to spare. They borrowed grain at impossible interest. They sold tools. They sold clothes. They sold land. Some sold themselves into service. As hunger deepened, social rules began to collapse. Trust weakened. Suspicion grew. Doors were locked more often. Cellars were hidden. Grain was buried underground. Communal life quietly broke apart. Villages had once survived through cooperation, shared labor, shared tools, shared responsibility. Famine destroyed that system. People began thinking as families, not communities, then as individuals. Children were sent away, not because parents stopped loving them, but because they could not feed them. Some children were given to monasteries, some were left near towns, some were abandoned entirely. Many never survived. Old people were next. They ate last, they worked less, they were given less. No one spoke of it openly. Everyone understood the weakest would die first. Hunger changed what people considered food. Grass, roots, leaves. Animals once untouched were hunted: dogs, cats, birds. Still, it was not enough. Bread became symbolic, a memory of sustenance rather than nourishment. A loaf was divided into tiny portions, measured carefully, watched closely. Every crumb mattered. Eventually, people began to eat seed grain. They knew what it meant. They did it anyway. Eating seed was choosing death later to survive today. Fields planted with almost nothing produced almost nothing. The next harvest failed before it began. Hunger reshaped the human body. Legs swelled, skin cracked, hair fell out. People became cold even in mild weather. Their bodies could no longer regulate heat. Sleep disappeared, not from energy, but from pain. Children stopped growing. Adults shrank. Bones weakened. Teeth loosened. People aged rapidly. A man of 30 could look 60. A child of 10 looked 5. Hunger also destroyed the mind. Time collapsed. There was only today, and maybe tomorrow. Weeks blurred. Days lost meaning. People stopped counting months. They counted meals. Smells became unbearable. The smell of food caused pain. The sound of chewing angered those who had nothing. People avoided eating together. Fear replaced shame. Pregnant women suffered uniquely. Many miscarried. Others gave birth to children too weak to live. Breast milk dried up. Even mothers who survived could not feed their infants. Entire generations were reduced before they began. Crime increased. Stealing became common. Punishment did not soften. Stealing bread could still mean death. Authorities feared chaos more than compassion. Markets turned hostile. Prices exploded. Speculation thrived. Those with grain controlled life itself. Rumors spread. People blamed outsiders, minorities, witches, anyone but hunger. Violence followed. Religion struggled to contain despair. Prayers continued. Hope faded. Church charity was overwhelmed. Monasteries closed their gates. Not from cruelty, from survival. Villages began to empty. One house abandoned, then another. No one moved in. Burials became simpler, then rushed, then careless. Graves were reused, bodies placed together, names were forgotten, animals roamed freely, fields returned to weeds. Travelers passed through these places later. They found silence, open doors, tools left behind, evidence of lives interrupted. Some villages survived by chance, better soil, a nearby river, a lord willing to release grain. Most did not. Entire regions lost half their population, sometimes more. Recovery took generations. Land lay unused. Skills were lost. Knowledge died with the dead. Forests grew where fields once stood. Years later, children asked about ruins. Parents answered vaguely. There were people there once. No names, no stories, just absence. This is how entire villages died, not in a single moment, but day by day, meal by meal, grain by grain. Medieval life was fragile. 1 year without harvest was enough. No fire, no invasion, just hunger, silent, relentless, complete. Even after the famine ended, the damage did not. Food returned slowly. Bodies did not. Those who survived carried hunger inside them for the rest of their lives. Their bodies never fully recovered. Their strength never returned completely. Scars remained. People who had starved once feared starvation forever. They hoarded food even in good years. They hid grain even when harvests were strong. Memory of hunger became instinct. Children born after famine were raised differently. Parents taught them fear early, fear of waste, fear of hunger, fear of empty shelves. Meals were eaten quickly, leftovers were guarded. Food was never taken for granted again. Famine also reshaped family structures. Many households lost entire generations. Grandparents died first, then parents. Sometimes children survived alone. Orphans became common. Some were absorbed into other families. Many were sent into service. Some wandered. Child labor increased after famine. Survival replaced education entirely. A childhood interrupted by hunger never truly returned. Marriage patterns changed. People married later or not at all. Famine taught caution. Starting a family required resources few had left. Birth rates remained low long after food returned. The village itself was changed. Where once there had been laughter, there was quiet. Festivals disappeared or shrank. Music stopped. Celebration felt inappropriate in a place that had buried so many. Fields were replanted slowly. There were not enough hands. Land that once supported dozens supported only a few. Some areas never recovered their population. They remained thinly settled for centuries. The landscape told the story. Abandoned terraces collapsed. Irrigation channels filled with dirt. Paths disappeared. Nature advanced where people retreated. Forests reclaimed farmland. Wild animals returned. The land forgot human presence. Authorities learned lessons too. Some rulers stockpiled grain afterward. Others ignored the warning. History shows famine repeated again and again because the system never truly changed. Peasants still lived on the edge. Harvests still depended on weather. Storage was still limited. A single bad year could still destroy everything. Medieval people understood this. That is why fear shaped their worldview. Fear of weather, fear of God, fear of tomorrow. Hope existed, but it was fragile. When harvests were good, people celebrated hard because they knew it might not last. Abundance was temporary, scarcity felt permanent. This shaped medieval psychology. Life was lived intensely, briefly, urgently. People worked until their bodies broke because rest did not guarantee survival. They prayed not for comfort, but for continuity. Another year, another harvest. That was enough. Famine stripped life down to essentials. Food, shelter, warmth. Everything else disappeared. Art, leisure, dreams, hunger reduced existence to endurance. Surviving one more day was success. And tomorrow the same struggle would begin again. When entire villages vanished, no monuments were built, no memorials, only silence. Later generations walked over their fields without knowing. They plowed soil mixed with bones. They lived on land shaped by hunger and death. This is how medieval famine worked, not as a single disaster, but as a slow erasure, village by village, family by family, until nothing remained.